Hi, today we're going to talk about rational approximations. Actually, we're going to be looking at irrational numbers and trying to give them a rational approximation so we can kind of figure out where they're located between numbers or on a number line. So what we're going to be looking at is the problem, find the square root of 20 to the nearest tenth. And we have three methods that we're going to look at today in order to help us find the approximation of the square root of 20. The first method that we're going to look at is the good old guess and check method. The second method that we'll look at is called the ratio method. And the third method will be what we call the halfway method. Okay, so now we're going to look at the guess and check method. And what we need to do is look at the nearest perfect squares to 20. We need to look at the perfect square below 20, and we need to look at the perfect square above 20. So that's going to be the square root of 16 is going to be below 20, and the square root of 25 is going to be above 20. So now we know that the square root of 20 is going to be somewhere in between 4 and 5. So now what we're going to do is we're actually going to look at selecting a decimal number between 4 and 5. Well, I look at my numbers and I notice that the square root of 20 and the square root of 16 and 20 are only 4 apart. So I'm going to try 4.4 first. And I'm going to square, going to square 4.4. And I'm going to get 19.36. Well, that's a little bit below 20, so now I'm going to try 4.5. So now I'm going to take 4.5 and I'm going to square it, and I'm going to get 20.25. So these are the two numbers that we're going to look at and decide. This will help us decide what decimal we're going to choose. Okay, so the two numbers that we're going to look at are 19.36 and 20.25. And what I want to know is, what's the difference between these numbers and 20? Well, if we look at the difference between 20 and 19.36, we get 0.64. And if we look at the difference between 20 and 20.25, it's 0.25. So which one is actually closer to 20? Well, it's going to be this number right here. So I would say the approximation of the square root of 20 is 4.5. Okay, so the second method, which is the ratio method, can be a bit confusing, but I'll go ahead and explain it. It should be in your notes also. The first thing we want to look at is how far away is 16 from 25. So 16 from 25 is 9. And then we want to see how far away 16 is from 20. So 16 from 20 is 4. So what we can say here that 20 is 4/9 of the way to 25. So that's going to be the ratio that we use, or the fraction. Okay, so we said 20 is 4/9 of the way to 25, and we already know that the square root of 16 is 4, so our mixed number is going to be 4 and 4/9, and we're going to convert that to a decimal, so we're going to change it to a decimal. So go ahead and do that on your calculators. And tell me what you get. You should be getting 4.4 repeating. And you can check that by going ahead and squaring that and see how close to 20 that you get. and that is the ratio method. Okay, so now we're going to look at the halfway method, and the halfway method is pretty much what it says, is you're going to look at halfway in between. So we know that the square root of 20 is going to be between 4 and 5, because our perfect square 16 is 4, and the perfect square root of 25 is 5. So I look at the decimal that's halfway in between 4 and 5. Well, that's going to be 4.5. So I'm going to go ahead and square that, and I'm going to get for my answer 20.25. Well, that's a little bit larger than 20, so I'm going to see if I can get a little bit closer. So now the two numbers that I'm going to pick between are 4 and 4.25. I'm sorry, 4.5, because I want to choose 4.25. Let me erase that real quick. Okay, so we're going to look halfway in between 4 and 4.5, and that happens to be 4.25. So now we're going to square 4.25. Okay, when we square that, we get 18.0625, and we know that's too low. So now we're going to just work up in increments, and I would go to 4.3 and then 4.35 until I get close enough to the square root of 20. That's closer than 20.25, which is our 4.5 squared. Okay, you're going to go ahead and do your 3 got it problems. They are on the back of your notes. The first one is find the square root of 12. The second one is find the square root of 30. And the third one is find the square root of 44. You can use any of the 3 methods that we talked about in the video and bring those back to school tomorrow so we can check them. Okay, good luck. Have fun.